And I don't even know if people know like the footprints and the handprints that you've had on like early Christian hip hop. I feel like Biz is always making fun of me because like, yo, Ace, you don't know the history, you don't know the catalog. And I mean, it was at dinner last night. I was unpacking a lot, just asking y'all questions about like the makings of Christian hip hop, the place, the origins, who was there, and it's like it's hard to tell that story without coming across you, Adam, and honestly the stuff that you've done with. So say more about how you guys.
Do you know how I got connected to you?
I don't remember, honestly.
Okay, so
I don't think I know. I think I know like bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, so at that time you was working with Dre and you were working with Show just in conversation.
Yeah. Shout out Dre Murray.
Yeah. And Show was like, yo, man, you heard this guy named Witt. And at that time, my sound that I wanted to have for Collision Records, you know, that originally started with Joseph Prolosny. Shout out to Joe. The sound I had in my head was more like boutique, live sounds, live music. So when Shows sent me a link of Witt stuff, I was like, yo, who is this dude? You know, because at that time, live instrumentation wasn't part of CHH.
Yeah, it was like the it was the Triton era, fam.
Right.
So to hear his stuff, that's when I reached out and listen. It was a partnership.
And at the time, I ain't gonna lie, I'm super ignorant, Adam. I don't even know. I know about you and Collision, like from a macro standpoint. Okay. I don't know the details. Like,
okay,
can you just share it for people? Yeah. People can just know Collision Records, what time frame, all that.
All right, so the real story, real quick. 2003, I meet Lecrae and Ben. That's when Reach is popping off, but Lecrae hadn't even released Real Talk. He was going by another artist's name. I want to say it so bad. I don't want to throw him under the bus.
This is like, say it. Run it. Pull all the receipts.
Yeah, right. But so it was all hands on deck. The only reason I say that is because they're writing support letters. They consider themselves music missionaries. They weren't thinking of like being full-time in music.
Sure.
So it's all hands on deck. So it's like, hey, everything you need to know about the music business, shipping CDs, we're all hands on deck, helping design and stuff like that. And so as they started to pop off, that was in 2003, they started to hit right around iTunes when Rebel came out, Lecrae and that's when Reach got
2003 post.
Yeah. So when that popped off right around like that 2008 to 2010, everybody was like, yo, let's come to Reach. And Reach was like, yo, we only can do 4 artists. So then that's when Joseph Prolosny hit me and said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a label. He's like, I got the distro with Central South. You in?
I mean, what when you say you're in, like what role was you like?
Well, he's like, I seen the role you played at Reach. Like, cause I'm coming out of the fashion industry. So my thought wasn't music, but because I was with him that 2003 to 2005, 5 years, 2008, 2009, my insight for the business just came by default.
Sure.
So Joe was like, man, you'll be a good partner, right? But we know that didn't last long because Joe went back to Reach. It was weird. So he had already reached out to Swoop at that time, and so I'm just one of those, if you make a promise to a guy, I'm like, hey, I want to keep the promise. So at that time, we're only thinking Swoop. So that was 2008, 2009. And that's really how Collision formed. There was an influx at Reach, and they were like, hey, Joseph said, hey, let's start a label. And then he dipped, so then I had to get another partner. And at that time, I come across Witt through Show. So that was like 08, 09.
You essentially like kind of, you heard his beats and was like, yo, I need him to produce.
Oh, yeah. It's just like, be the sound.
Oh, like be like the in-house, like the Manny Fresh.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Isn't that crazy?
How'd that feel with at that time being like called?
Man, it was crazy because like I met them after I think Swoop did Spring Fling. I think
Yeah.
And
a mixtape,
and me and Dre had a project called Hell's Paradise that was out at that time. And I heard Swoop and I was like, yo, would you want to get on one of these records or whatever? And basically like our, working chemistry started that way. Now Swoop, as everybody knows, is a phenomenal producer in and of himself. So it wasn't like I'm coming in here to like produce his stuff. I just wanted to work alongside him and just connect. And we just connected as people. Right. And we worked on Wake Up.
That's right.
And then that was before I was even an A&R there or anything. Like that was before any of that time there. And then, as the label started to build and we had more artists come along, it turned into its own monster.
And
that's crazy.
We Live as Kings, last track on Wake Up. And then when we decided to make that a project,
Gotcha.
it was like, Witt, what we doing? What's the vision? And to this day, like instrumentation and we were talking about this synthesis going from one track to the next.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's other than Timberland, who's a master of doing that on JT's older projects.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Timbaland's my favorite.
The Reprise?
Yeah, come on. Timbaland's one of my favorite producers,
Yeah.
which I still pull from to this day.
I will say AT was the first person to really empower me to really like be able to create a full sonic soundscape for like create a world for artists. So like the way our whole process of how we did all those records under Collision, the Swoop stuff, the Kristen Gray stuff, Dre, Alex, all that stuff happened. Like everything was front to back. They would fly to my crib. We would do everything. We would do the writing, the production, the recording, the mixing, the mastering. Literally all done within a couple months. And it was just like us living life together, us like everything was done in-house. Everything was done really close quarters. And I had never done that before with the artist before. I always wanted to, but he was the one who gave me he empowered me when I was young to be able to be like, hey, I think you could actually do this. And,
so dope.
And gave us the freedom to, me and Swoop were just locked in there literally every month, just cranking music. And it really informs a lot of how I even do things today.
Right.
Like that era like basically built me into the producer that I am.
And what was it about? What did AT say to you specifically? You said empowered. What was the conversations like that made you, that kind of put the battery in your pack? You know what I'm saying? To do it at that level.
I mean, he always encouraged me verbally, but I think the best way to encourage somebody is by giving them opportunity. And he was like, "Hey, get this done, and here's your deadline." And you know how disciplined you know how disciplined this guy is.
Yo, he's like a freaking martial arts like general.
When this guy would say this album is due on this date, he didn't mean the next day. He didn't mean the next week. He meant if it's not in by that date, this is getting pushed back 3 months, and you're gonna have to answer to the artist. So like
a lot of pressure.
Yeah, so honestly,
it makes sense though. See how AT move? I don't work out with him no more, by the way, because
have y'all heard the term quiet quit somebody? Have you heard that term where people are quiet quit you?
Yeah,
Ace quiet quit me in the gym, bro.
Yeah, I was like, my man had me doing all. I was like, we built up for like MMA fighting. What we doing? Like,
well, you were getting
it. Just stop showing up.
It was great. You know what? I probably need to tap back in. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah. I didn't put my application back in if you're hiring.
That's the power of Adam Thomas to see how he just lured you right back into.
Yeah, that is how he moves. So this is like. What time are we talking about? It's like 2009, 2010.
Nah, this is like 2012 at this point.
Yeah,
2012, 13, 14,
yeah.
like around that era.
Yeah.
This is this was after like Church Closed, Gravity era.
Yeah. And when did you know like production would be the thing that you wanted to do? Did it hit you like as a young kid or like when did that kind of like
honestly, yeah, like not to sound any sort of way, like I always kind of knew that this is what I was going to do since I was probably like 16, 17 years old. Oh, wow. So I started making beats when I was 14. And
what were you on, by the way? What equipment?
I had a cracked version of Fruity Loops. That was what I started on.
Yo,
yeah. So my youth pastor actually gave me a demo first. And
why would he give you a demo? What was the why?
So I was I was like just messing around with my friends. We would like freestyle and rap over like mainstream beats and stuff at church. And he was like, "You ever thought of making your own beats?" And this guy wasn't even into hip hop at all. So
how old was he?
He was in his 30s at the time, but he wasn't into hip hop. He was from Buffalo. Like he wasn't like into any of this stuff, but he just believed in me enough, and he was like,
"Shout out to youth pastor."
Shout out to the youth pastor.
They really be pulling it out of you. They really pull something out of you.
He was like, "You ever thought about making your own beats?" I was like, "Nah." And he gave me the mini disc, the FL Studio mini disc, and that was back when I don't know if you remember, like you couldn't save anything. You just had to, if you made a beat on there, you just have to bounce it out, and I would bounce it out and burn it to a CD. So I did that for like a few months, and then somebody showed me how to crack FL. Did that. Don't crack plugins. Don't steal software.
Hey, Biz, we're not cracking any plugins.
No,
okay.
I'm not condoning that. But the first beat that I sold, I used that money to buy FL legit.
Wow.
So
man, that's a beautiful.
That is.
Mia, you've talked about how like youth pastors have played like I think in some conversations, some circles, youth pastors get dunked on. But talk about how like youth pastors have like been a catalyst for so many great people in the church.
I think it's because they see something in you at a young age, and when they're more eager to mold that, and there's so much potential. And the fact that you're a youth, like in hindsight now, like how does it feel knowing that someone saw that in you at a young age and was able to bring out so much, in the long run?
I mean, it's informed how I do my life, how I live my life now. So like a lot of all the things we built, all the things that the credits we've gotten, all of the career that we've been able to build, where I'm at in this stage of my career is about legacy, and it's about mentorship, and it's about building things. And Ace, I was telling you about some of this stuff yesterday. Like with all the cool, crazy stuff that we're able to be a part of now, what I'm most passionate about is developing, like doing what he did for me on a grander scale, and being able to find those young people, especially at our church that we serve at, investing in them, whatever, buying them gear, giving them time, giving them game, like having them in the studio, just giving them an opportunity to learn something, whether they want to do this or not. I feel like that's our responsibility.
Yeah.
And we've had people, people like my youth pastor, but as you guys also know, like Fish, people like DJ Essence, Josh Wan, like those guys who really poured into me at that age. It's like I have a responsibility. If I was able to go further, now I've got to go bring somebody else, go find the young version of me at 14, 15 years old, bring them to the studio, go buy them lunch, go like spend time with them, invest them as people. So that's the impact. Like it's a lifelong impact that he made just by like literally sliding. It wasn't just as simple as giving me like some software.
Yeah.
He like changed my life.
That's good.
So
That's fire.
You gotta have everybody Googling what church you at right now.
So you get I want to do lunch. I want to get some gear. I want to pull up on you.
I just want to say shout out to all the youth pastors in America.
Yes.
Just because even us talking off air, just talking about how instrumental they play into, like, even talking about me, my youth pastor pulled me up on stage and was like, host, and I wouldn't be who I am today, with doing that. So it's crazy even hearing how instrumental it is for you to see something in someone at a young age and pull it out of them.
And we were joking in the break about how like it depends on what kind of youth pastor you got. AT was saying like, the ones that the reason why they're hated on because they don't know how to dress. but you were saying like, honestly, the ones that maybe not be the sauciest be like the best youth pastors though. Yeah. I mean, tell me, why is that? I was
jokingly saying like I wouldn't trust the youth pastor if he knew how to dress like super fashionable. So
too on the nose.
He's too on the trend.
Yeah, give me a guy who doesn't know how to dress.
All the lingo. He's still using the word swag. I know. Give me somebody a little dated. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I will say, speaking of being on the pulse of culture, man, it's an interesting time in Christian hip hop. I mean, kind of like just a historical moment has happened. And I know that we all connect with being recognized. It's something that we all like to do, even though we may downplay it. But I think the latest recognition that Lecrae got from Kendrick was so profound because it wasn't, which I said on the podcast before, it wasn't just about recognition for recognition's sake. Yeah. It was about someone with a godly character being asked their perspective on a heightened situation. And I think that we need to, as Christian hip hop advocates, as connoisseurs, look, I'm not here to debate whether we'd have got better music. That's like a shallow argument to me a lot of times. What is our perspective? What is our distinction? And so, shout out to Lecrae and the backstory on how he responded to Kendrick's Watch the Party Die. It started right here on this couch between these conversations. And people have always asked me how this song came about. I think, Adam, it would be good to just share like how this thing even started, man. Like, the whole Yeah, so without being long-winded, Hovey just released the album. I'm listening to that. I'm listening to Roses. I walk into the office on Friday. So the track released Tuesday? The Kendrick one?
Yeah.
I think I had released Wednesday.
Okay, so released Wednesday.
Yeah,
so,
Wednesday. It was that week. Damn, it was that. I thought it was.
It was the same week.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So
it was Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah. So people were hitting me up, sending it to me, and I didn't really take it in because I'm like, hey, I'm on this Hovey Roses. I'm in my worship. Yeah. And so I come into the office. Ben goes, man, that's crazy. I said, yeah, Roses is crazy. He goes, no, it's crazy. Is that Kendrick mentioned Lecrae twice. And I was like, oh, word? He said, yeah. He says, listen to the song. So I go listen to the song, And I go, okay, it's crazy he mentioned Lecrae, but it's crazy what he's talking about. And he's talking about death, partying, two-face, hypocrisy, fake gangsters, objectification. And he's saying, hey, Lecrae, what would you do with this? Would you pray for them or F these ninjas up? Right? And so in my head, I go, that's a Holy Spirit alley-oop.
That's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? Like I literally came out of the office. I go, oh no, Ben. I said, what y'all doing? I go, are y'all gonna do anything? And Ben was like, nah, we don't want. We feel like it might be cloud chasing. Then you came up, then Biz came up, and I go, cloud chasing. This man asked a question. What would this guy do? And we've been praying for this moment for 20 years. For 20 years. I go, if you can't use this moment.
When you say praying for this moment, help me, can you unpack what that means?
So earlier I said, 2003 is when I meet Ben and Lecrae. Remember, they were music missionaries. They weren't looking to have a thriving business. So their whole thing is, I'm seeing these dudes cry over people, freestyling on corners of Deep Ellum, going to juvenile detention centers like, we want to see people come to know the Lord. And they were working at a KAA, urban youth camp. Yeah. And during that time, all you have is secular music. There was no like Reach Records or the Indie Tribes or Collision. It was just the world's music. And that's when Ben and Lecrae go, and we need to give them an alternative that's equally as good that has Christ in the center. So in my head, I go, this is a 20-year softball. Dang. What? And listen, Kendrick just won the debate. Right, sure. the beef. So he took out the rap god, so to speak, over singles and streams. Sure. And he got all the hits and he's like, he just defeated that dude. Yeah. So with the crowd on, sizzling. Come on, bro. And he headlined the Super Bowl. The Lord could have had him talk about any rapper. Lupe. What was the dude that did the joint with Jay-Z? That's a Muslim guy.
Jay Electronica.
Jay Electronica. He could have mentioned his name. Like Conscious dude, he could have, you feel me? And he goes, out of all people, out of all rappers across the globe, he goes, what will Lecrae do twice? What we
so you felt
about?
Like,
gotta say something.
You feel like that was, like, you said that was like
that needed a response.
Yeah.
It needed a response because, and at this time I'm praying and I'm fasting.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah, you tapped in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm like tapped in. Yeah. So when I'm praying and I'm fasting, there are times where you see something, I was like, I don't need to pray about that. That's the Lord. So when I heard that, I go, that's why I came out with kind of so much like, I'm convinced, like, you need to respond because people are waiting.
So so this will happen. So that's AT's, like, that's the energy he's coming with. And it's Friday morning. Mind you, Wednesday, Thursday, transparently, me, Lecrae, we're talking through it. We're just like, we're just, our reflex is we don't want to be clout chasing. Honestly, when I first heard the Kendrick record, my immediate thought was, we got to respond. Mm-hmm. But my heart was it wasn't from the right place. I ain't gonna lie. So then I backtracked and kind of settled. I was like, nah, this is not, we want to be careful of how we looked out here. We don't want to seem like we're trying to maximize this moment. Yeah. So Friday morning, coming to film the 116 Life, I come into the office, I see Adam talking to Ben Washer and Biz, and and Adam's like trying to like sway, and Biz is chiming in, Ben's chiming in, and I'm still in my position of, I don't think this is a good idea. And I ain't gonna lie, within like 5 minutes, I don't know if it was you or the Holy Spirit, it had to be the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. You changed my perspective. I'm like, oh, you were basically saying like, this is not a response from a place of clout. This is a kingdom responsibility to speak into this situation and culture, being unashamed of the gospel, seeing the way people are changed. Like that's our mission essentially. And so I sat on that idea. This is Friday. I'm still like, I think you had text Lecrae, and Lecrae was like, man, my schedule's crazy. Yeah. Weekend was busy.
Ben put us on the text thread, and then Lecrae was like, schedule's crazy. Y'all got to lift me up. Y'all already shot that video and had that scheduled to be released. And so he's like, man, I don't want to put out something to cannibalize that.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So y'all had things in the chamber.
It was a lot to think about. So I ain't gonna lie. Went to bed Friday night, early Saturday morning. I probably got up at like 6. I just felt the Lord just like prompting my heart. I send a text to the executive chat at Reach Records. It's Biz, KDD, Ben, Lecrae. I gave like a 3-point argument of why we need to.
Okay, so you did.
I did.
Nice. Come on.
And then Lecrae responds, I think so too. And meanwhile, I'm like, all right. So I said you should just write to the beat and we can find. I ain't know what was gonna happen.
Yeah.
I had to go to a funeral that day.
Yeah.
I had a lot going on. So anyway, I'm like, all right, we'll just try to maybe write to the original track and try to find something. So I'm headed to a funeral. I'm scrambling. I'm rushing. Lecrae, I'm at the funeral on the drum set. Lecrae's like, yo, can you send some beats? It's like sample beats. So I'm texting all my producers that I know can create that sound that we want, which is like we want to have a track that has classic composition, hip hop, no drums, amazing loop. That's what we wanted. So I'm texting like different producers. I'm texting Dave Jane. I'm texting Enzo. I texted Witt first. I ain't gonna lie. And Witt texts me back, yo, like in like 15 minutes. I'm on the drums at church. And I'm like, crap, I can't listen to the joint. And I left my AirPods in the car because I wanted to be present at the funeral. So I just didn't expect to have to use my AirPods. So on like a quick break, I go back to the bathroom and I'm like listening to beats on my speakerphone, like just trying to see which beat is the best beat. And I listened to the Die for the Party beat first, which is the first beat in the thread. And I listened to like 3 others you sent. And nobody else has sent me beats. Only Witt sent me beats because it was like an urgent thing. And I text that immediately to Lecrae. Like I said, yo, I try to like be humble, but I was like, yo, I ain't really listen good. I think this is the one. Cause I ain't really, it felt right, but I ain't want to like, sometimes Lecrae's so critical. I ain't want to hear that feedback. And then, I'm gonna bring you in a second with, and then I'm on the drums, me and we were trying to like figure out when he was gonna record. Apparently it was a Saturday. We never work on Saturdays. And Biz and Lecrae are texting. I was thinking they was gonna go to the studio that night. So I'm thinking, I'm gonna go to this funeral. I'm gonna go to the repast. It's an African church. It's a long day. And I'm basically leaving my the repast like 7:30. And I'm calling Biz like, yo, when y'all going to the studio? I want to go. We're gonna work on the joint, right? Yeah. Biz is like, yo, check your phone. I'm like, what? So I had been off my phone for all day. I'm trying to be present. Check my phone. I play the record in the car with my wife and kids. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like losing it. And I said,
can I come in right
jump
there?
in.
You gonna come in. So all that's happening, which is good. You convince him. And then in the morning, I get the first draft. Like, so Ben puts us on a text thread and he goes, hey, AT got a pitch for you. That was on Friday.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I go, pitch. I'm just going to tell you what I said in the studio. So that's on Friday. So then Spirit moves on you. You convince the executive team. He said yes. So the last word I get from Lecrae on Friday, schedule's too busy. I don't know if my mind could do it, yada, yada. And in my head, I'm like, man, Spirit, work on this dude. Hit this dude. That's literally was my prayer. I was like, hit this dude. And then right around like 11 something, he sends me the first draft. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. Now the first draft don't have, talking about the cousin, fentanyl, and his pops in there. So that was the first draft. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. He calls me. Because, normally he knows that I got, an ear for it. He's like, man, you don't think I need to add anything? I was like, well, you do. I think you need to let people know you're not this squeaky clean Christian. You did find your cousin dead in fentanyl. We did go see your pops on the street. So I said, if you let people know that you understand where he's coming from, it'll make your conclusion strong. Talk to me nice, bro. He went back.
It's fire, bro.
Round 2, and I was like, bro, that's it, dog.
So, Witt, first of all, that's amazing. Talk about what made you send me that beat, where that beat come from, like what?
So the way we normally work is we build up a catalog of all different kinds of stuff. We make our own samples. We just have a ton of stuff that's just sitting in the vault for just in case somebody calls for this particular sound. So that was something that we had made, us and a group of other musicians that we work with all the time. Like we had made it and I just had it just sitting in the vault. My ear will just usually remember and like I'll be, all right, cool, this worked perfect in this situation. So I was privy to what happened with Kendrick and all that. And I was like, he's hitting me about this. I asked you, what's it for? You said Lecrae. And I was like, oh, this is a response. I know what kind of mood, I know what kind of mood this is going to need. I know what this is, whatever. So in my head, that particular record, I was like, okay, I know how I could flip this. I know how I can make this work with Lecrae, like the key that usually, his voice sounds best on, whatever, and all that. And then, just chopped it a little and then ran it through a tape machine and sent it off to you. It was crazy because you had to play at a funeral. I had to go play at a youth conference that me and Joel were volunteering for, talking about this stuff at our church. Like, we were literally about to drive out. I only had like an hour.
Dog.
So you hit me for that, and I was like, all right, well, I only have a few minutes before I have to dip out. And so I just put that together, sent it off, and I was like, we'll see what happens. And that's how it happened. And it was crazy because like I was literally at the conference on it's funny, the day starts with you on drums hitting me. The day ended with you texting me the Instagram link that the song came out while I was on drums at this conference that same evening. And I just thought that was really funny and kind of poetic how the whole thing happened within like 10 hours.
Wow.
And even more like Divine was, we needed this record, we needed a beat. I hit up people. It's not by accident you and your team, the Weathermen, shout out Joel, shout out John, shout out everybody that worked on that record. It's not by accident that you happen to be the one who provided the right soundtrack for this moment. Because, I mean, to those that don't know, you produced Church Clothes, the original track that was the title track to one of Lecrae's biggest breakthrough moments, I feel like, in culture. And talk about how the like Divine like connection and how Kendrick is somehow a part of that moment and this moment as well.
I thought that was really interesting because when I found out this is a response to, like, it was like such a cultural moment. Like I could sense it already. It's like, all right, Kendrick is at the peak. The original Church Clothes record, for those who remember the music video, had Kendrick in it. I think this is right before Good Kid came out, right before Kendrick was Kendrick. It was still like bubbling, like Section 80 and all that stuff. People knew who he was, but he wasn't who he is now. And it was really interesting because he's in that video. Obviously me and Craig did Church Clothes. We worked on Gravity and all that stuff, but we haven't really linked and worked on anything pretty much ever since. That was the first time we really did anything. And so it felt like this weird full circle moment that like Kendrick was involved in the genesis of our working relationship. And then recently Kendrick, in that 10-year time, whatever, that we hadn't worked again, Kendrick has ascended to basically being at the top of music and the top of culture. And in that time, he calls Lecrae's witness out, basically. He calls Lecrae and basically gives him a platform to be like, hey, this is your chance to actually, here's the alley-oop, basically. And Lecrae nailed it. Like I feel like, yeah, the music bed is great, but like what he said was really what mattered. What he said, he responded to the moment. He stepped up to the moment and made us very proud, honestly. And it was really dope to be part of a moment. It's not about being a part of a big record. It was more of like, man, as far as Christian hip hop goes, like this is in a really important time for us. Like this is what we've always talked about. Yeah. Something like this ever happening, and the fact that it happened and we were all able to be a part of it, it just felt like an honor, honestly.
Man, that's so good, man. We could probably talk about this for hours, man. Just how like this whole thing came together, and obviously what seems like irony on the surface is like prophetic and divine from the root, because that's how it's all. It's like to take credit for it would be like foolish, because it's like we couldn't have like written this script. It literally just happened, and I'm so thankful that I got you brothers in my life to having godly counsel, to having a circle of people that can push back, that can sharpen you, and we can spar. And I think that is, let's say, classics are made in community, and I would say godly community creates a great testimony as well. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So we're here catching up on the amazing contributions of Witt. He's actually 1/3 of this amazing production team, Weathermen. Give it up for Joel and John McNeil in the building. Appreciate y'all. And I think we probably need like a whole segment to talk about everything y'all have done. But Witt, just kind of give a little intro onto your brothers, man, and what they've contributed to, not just Die for the Party, but just as brothers and as a collective.
Yeah. So me, John, and Joel have actually, this is like our 10-year anniversary of us even like knowing each other. So we met. I knew them as like through our homie Wes Pendleton. Shout out Wes Pendleton. He introduced me to them as 42 North. They were two phenomenal musicians, bass and keys. And my experience with working with like musicians, especially from the church, wasn't always great. Cause so I was like, oh, cool. Here comes some other musicians. And then they came by and They were different. And musically, that was the initial spark. I was like, these guys don't think or play like musicians. They had a different ear. They had almost a production type of ear. And they weren't really producing at that time, really. And I was like, there's something interesting here. And our personal vibe really connected. And it was just like an instant chemistry. And it was very easy for us to work. So that was how we initially met. And, hundreds of records later, like we've become, it's more than just like, obviously, like us working together. Like we're extremely involved in each other's lives. These are my two best friends. So like we do everything together. So John always says like the music is a byproduct of our relationship.
That's great.
Not the other way around.
That's so good.
So
yeah. So John, I want to bring you a little bit. Talk about what like the kind of the primary role you play in the Weathermen and your contributions.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm a bass player first. I mean, for clarity, I started on trombone, but bass is my main instrument, and we really function like a production band. You know, we were telling you a little before in the studio, like we just get together and like literally play together, like not like you record your part, you record your part. We really like to play together, whether Witt is programming drums, playing drums, or playing a sample while we're playing. It's just, it really goes down that way, and we love it. And these dudes give me a lot of space to shine as a bass player, which isn't like normal, because you know, bass like to be in the background.
Yeah.
They're always pushing me out front, literally in the mix, and like literally just in creating sonic space for me to just play. So sometimes I feel like I'm playing lead guitar, like I'm a lead guitarist, but I'm a bass player. You know what I mean?
That's so dope.
It's fun, man.
And Joe, talk about obviously this is like your blood brother. Talk about it being connected to a collective and being like producing alongside your brother in this collective. Talk about like the brotherhood of you and John, and then also this collective as a brotherhood.
Yeah, so that is something I don't take for granted. Like I get to work, make music with my brother, and my now brother from another. It's like the greatest work environment anyone could ever have. So I like believe that in every day that we get to create. It's like what we're saying, is way more than just a musical thing. It's like I get to hang with family. The creative thing is kind of like a byproduct, and it kind of just comes as we hang together. Like I see us when we get into work, it doesn't feel like work anymore. It's just like, we're spending family time, and we're also getting to do the thing we love to do the most, the thing that kind of like makes our heart beat, which is make music. And it's just incredible.
That's so dope, man. And I mean, I feel like I've been bragging on y'all every time I introduce y'all to people. And guess what? It's not gonna stop.
Thank you.
I got like outside of Die for the Party. Joel and John have been instrumental in my life as an A&R, where I've had records that needed touches, needed perspective musically, and I brought them in. I can just name Lecrae's Deconstruction, Hovey's Closer, Hovey's Roses, What Up RG's Hollywood, like just amazing touches that y'all have contributed. I just appreciate y'all. And I think Witt, you hit it on the head, where obviously you guys grew up playing in the church as church musicians, but that is not the limitation of y'all's contribution. Y'all have a taste that's really dope. Talk about why you may sometimes, this is not a knock on church musicians, but what is it about their style and taste that just adds from a production level?
Yeah, I can speak to that easily. So what's easy to happen with church musicians or just musicians in general is like you'll get in the studio, they either overplay, play too much, or they don't really have an understanding of space in a song. And that was the first thing I noticed with them.
That's good.
And like, yeah, just like a drummer, it's like you want a drummer that, you don't want a drummer to come in the studio and just start chopping everything. You want the guy who's able to stay in the pocket that plays to the song. And so immediately, I didn't even have to give them a lot of direction. Usually I'm used to having to be like, all right, this is exactly what I need. They had this intrinsic feel where they understood like, this is what serves the song best. And also another, technical thing is like an understanding of tone and sound selection and stuff. So
that's a real thing.
His bass tone, that's saved us a lot of times in these records. Like his bass tone is iconic a lot of times, and it's really nobody has that touch, a tone. It's not just about playing technical stuff, which he also can do, but he knows when to dial it back and play what serves the song. Same with Joel. Joel is incredible. He could play technically, but his understanding of sound design, his understanding
Yes,
of
for sure.
learning how to, like, the science behind it. He's a genius. Like, he's able to literally create any sound you want. You put him in front of any synth, he's able to get the most out of it. And so that element I saw like really early on with them, and I was like, this is very different. On top of that, the personal connection and like the way that we're able to vibe in person, which, as you know, I mean, you spend a lot of time in the studio. A lot of people don't get the call back just because they're not a good hang.
That's facts.
And
Yo, that's so true, bro.
it doesn't matter how good you are. You could be the nicest in the world,
Yeah.
but like if nobody wants to be around you,
Yeah.
then you know, that. So with that, we just were able to hang together. We would hoop together. We would do anything, like go out to eat, go shopping, do whatever. Like it just became like a friendship. And then the music just kind of like coincided with it.
That's so dope. And speaking of like your perspective for arranging musicians, Biz was saying this like on the break, how like when Lecrae was trying to find the right music bed for his verse for Die for the Party, you know, like I got a few, he was trying some of the other, we got some other, later in that day, we had got some other samples and stuff from other producers, and he was just going through stuff. He was saying that like y'all's composition just resonated and pulled out the emotion. Can you talk about what, obviously we can highlight the greatness of Lecrae and what he said on that record. Can you talk about how the music said a lot as well? Like what was the music communicating and conveying, and how do you pull that out of a record?
Yeah, I mean, everything we do, like we're not about perfection. We're not about getting things exactly right. So a lot of it, we're trying to maintain some human emotional element, and that's a big part of what we create. Is like, we don't care. You could do it perfectly. We'll keep the first take because it has the feeling in it. And so this record had a lot of emotional feeling. It was like a yearning. It was like something that it was saying already without any lyrics on top of it. And when you reached out on behalf of Lecrae, and I'm thinking like, all right, Lecrae at his best, in my opinion, I told him this yesterday. Like he has that Tupac energy. It's like it's like an emotion, and if you give him just the space where the music is already kind of tugging at your heartstrings, he's able to just, you know, slam it home.
For sure.
And so understanding just from the way we've worked before, even on some technical stuff, like, all right, I understand what key he kind of like, where he usually sits. Like we did a record back in the day called Inspiration, and I'm remembering his tonality on that kind of record. Right. It had like an emotional feeling that was on Church Clothes. And I went back and referenced some of those moments in my head before crafting this, putting this one together. I'm like, okay, this is the tempo, this is the key, this is usually where he likes to sit.
So genius, bro.
And yeah, he ended up slamming it home, and just like I expected him to. But yeah, it's all, everything we do is like, you can try to make as much science behind it as you want, but it's really about feeling, and it's second nature. It has to be second nature to you in order for you to for it to really translate. That's
so dope, man. I think y'all's touch for feel is really dope, and y'all do really understand the technical stuff really well. Like, you meet people who can produce or create and play, but I always say like this: when it comes to music, I'm a lyrics guy, I'm content, but how the music sounds is essentially, and I want to use this example with Care, but whenever you're dating someone, you know, you see them first, right? You don't get to hear them first. You see, that's probably the initial attraction. And I feel like with music, how it sounds is that same way. And then obviously once you hear something that you love, then you want to dig in deeper to see what the song is saying. And that probably will hold you there. But the initial attraction in music is the sound. And y'all have done that even so much, which a lot of producers don't know. You guys founded Soul Surplus, which to me as a producer is one of the most phenomenal storefronts and packages of loops that producers use. I mean, I've used Soul Surplus stuff all over these records, y'all. Talk about how like y'all's ability to craft and understand the science of sound has led y'all to create this amazing sample library, Soul Surplus. Yeah, that's like available on Splice.
It's so layered. I'll say for one, any good, I mean, it didn't start as a business. It started as solving a problem, which any business owner will tell you a good business solves a problem.
For sure.
So we were solving a problem for ourselves of, hey, you know, the red tape around sampling, and, you know, how can we take that away for ourselves? Sample yourself, make your own samples. And that's kind of what we were doing. Shout out again, like, you know, Witt mentioned to Wes Pendleton, amazing producer in CHH as well. OG CHH, but he's a sample-based producer, and he was like, why don't y'all just replay some of my samples? And it kind of grew from there. And just telling you a little about the Philly scene, like Philly's known for soul, deep soul history. You know, for folks who don't know, 70s soul to the neo soul movement, early 2000s and all that, and the roots and all that, live hip hop to just all of it. We came up in that. CHH also had a whole kind of run in Philly, you know, and then the gospel scene with Ty Tribbett and them. So Joel and I were definitely like we came from all those influences. We're coming up under a lot of those folks. So all of that was baked into it. But with Soul Surplus, it was really just us in our like row home in Philly, just making samples because we wanted to have them for ourselves. And then like, hey, why don't we just sell these online? And the rest became history, man. Became a full-on business. Brought on some more friends. Shout out to John Smythe, Pudge Tribbett, Ty Tribbett's cousin.
Dave James works with y'all as well.
Dave James works with us.
Shout out Dave
Swoop
James.
came in too. You know, it was just like a family affair. We're all like, hey, let's get in on this. You know, it's a world over here, and it's been amazing. And you know, like you said, to hear samples we make just end up on the records. You're like, whoa, how did that happen? You know,
that's dope.
Shout out also L. You know, part of the Soul Surplus team original, and Witt did so many of those recordings as well, just from all our studio spaces to a living room space to like better studios. It was a real, like I said, family affair, just making samples, and it became a world, man.
And talk about how being able to like, have that be an outlet for production and producers. Because I feel like, I mean, something you said with too, like placing records as a producer, and I'm an A&R, so I say this with a little bit of like reservation. It is grind. It's a grind. It's a grind. I think not enough people talk about that. Like when you're like making music and you're pitching it to artists to get placed. Talk about how you've kind of like created your own lane in the way y'all create records, and how even y'all have allowed y'all's musicianship to like create platforms and revenue for y'all outside of just having to like place records. Yeah, say more about that.
I mean, if Joel wants to speak into that a little bit,
definitely. Yeah. So I feel like Soul Surplus it's allowed us to kind of remove a bit of the pressure off of that, of what you just described. We don't have to chase down placements as aggressive as I think we would have if we weren't, you know, just cooking up samples for people to use, whether that's royalty-free stuff or stuff that's royalty-bearing. Like, it's allowed us to kind of pave our own way and kind of enjoy the best of both worlds.
Sure.
You know, getting the royalty-free stuff and doing the royalty bearing. We've been able to exist in both worlds.
Sure.
And that's it. It's been a huge blessing. So
that's dope, man.
For me, it's kind of just opened so many doors, way more doors than just kind of being in one lane the whole time. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, like, what's important for us is being able to work on what we're passionate about. What we like. And so whatever means we had to do to get to that, where we're not chasing placements with people we don't really have relationships with. We wanted to be something that we're excited about. We like building worlds. We like building universes with a few artists instead of trying to get on everybody's record. Like, it's not really a passion of ours. We don't really care. We only like working with people that we have genuine relationships with, and because that's how our music comes out. So like, if we bring people into that world and we work with them and they're a family to us, the music comes out better.
Yeah, I hear it.
It's weaved into the DNA. We really believe that. We really believe that the relationship is weaved into the fabric of the instruments, into the music. There's a spiritual element. There's a spiritual component to all that. And we feel like that became a priority to us. So jumping around, chasing, all right, this is the biggest artist. Let's get on this record. This is like, that culture is dead to us. So
yeah,
that's why we do things the way we do. That's the way we maneuver.
I love that. And also, man, hearing y'all's like, and I kind of want to land the plane here, but I think it's important to know like y'all's history with Christian hip hop as like, I mean, you guys were early, like y'all was in DJ Official, being in Philly, seeing all these early guys, early pioneers of Christian hip hop. Witt, can you talk about what can you speak into, especially like as a producer, the importance of the production specifically in our genre, in our space for CHH, and what producers can grow in? Not as much a critique, but a challenge for us. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I was coming up, I was growing up right outside of Philly, which was at that time the mecca of Christian hip hop. So like, everything was coming through Cross Movement, all those like Lamp Mode, you know, you had all the biggest artists were coming through, and the scene was just crazy. So I grew up, first time, like as I got exposed to the genre, I remember them early Cross Movement records, and I remember I used to look up to Fish so much. Like this is before I knew him. I was just a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I would buy those CDs and I would go home. I would rip it open and see which songs they're produced by DJ Official. And I would go and literally study. Like, all right, this guy's as good as anybody out in the world. This guy's is good. And I feel like there was guys that early in the genre that were doing it on that level, and Fish was one of them. DJ Essence, Josh Wan was another one of them that I got to see and was like, oh, this can be done in a Christian space and be done to high quality.
High level, yeah.
But on top of that, besides just the music, because eventually me and Fish ended up having he was like a big brother mentor type relationship as well as Esso. They poured into me, but then they poured into me as a person, as a man, and they helped develop my character. They helped develop how I actually like move in the industry and stuff. And so I think now we're getting to this point where there's a lot of quality, there's a lot of like a lot of dope producers, a lot of talent out there. Is it all honed in? Is it all honed in, and like, are people discipling them? Are people in their lives? Are people like, do they have mentorship? And like, is somebody even teaching you how to do your business? Is somebody teaching you how to do like, those are the kinds of things that we were able to have, that I was able to have and benefit from, to put me in this position now. And I feel like that's kind of what we want to contribute back to the guys that are coming up now.